here today with Tim Kelly and Terry Curran, and we would like to talk about co-presidencies or multiple presidencies per year. So first, love to hear your name, your club affiliation, and what you do for our district. So Tim.
Hi there, I'm Tim Kelly. My club is the Reading Rotary, and I serve on the Public Image Committee for the district.
And I'm Terry Curran of the Parkway Club of Rosendale, West Roxbury, Jamaica Plain, longest club there is. And I'm the district governor-elect and serve on all the committees in the district right now.
So Tim, I've heard that sometimes clubs can have 2 or more presidents per term. And I hadn't heard of that before. Can you tell me a little bit about what that is?
We have experienced that in our club, having a need to do that, and I foresee that we will need to probably consider doing that in the future. We had about 3 or 4 years ago, we had somebody who had been inducted as our president, and in like July she had a job change and wasn't able to continue on as president. And because of the location and her schedule, really wasn't able to even continue on in the club very actively. So we had a very quick time that we had to jump into action. And what she had done, and with a few other people, had just called around to members who had been president, so who had already done pets, and said, well, we need somebody to jump in. This has happened. I've been a Rotarian about 25 years or more, and every now and then somebody moves or something happens unexpectedly, and mid-year the president has had to step down or leave the club. So if the easiest thing for the club, the most seamless, is somebody to jump in and say, I'll do it, I'll take it over. But as with somebody called me and says, gee, Tim, could you jump in and do it? And of course, the first answer, which is probably the truest, is, oh, I couldn't possibly, I don't have time, I can't do it. But if everybody said that, then, we wouldn't have a president. So I said, I would certainly be willing to pitch in, but I really don't want to do it all myself. So after that, there was a couple other people who had expressed, gee, I can help, but I can't really do it now. I'm in a busy part of with my job. And I had envisioned that we would divide the job up. Let's just sit down and say, I'll take on this, you take on that. And, and have 2, 3, or 4 people dividing the job up. What we ended up doing, because somebody said, all right, well, president number 2 can't do it right now. Tim, you can jump in. If you jump in now, you do it the first 4 or 5 months. He'll jump in after you, and then president 3 will jump in after that. And then after pets happens, the next year's president, he could start early. And I think it was easier for me to say, like, what, I can do this for 4 months. I can do it for 5 months, but to commit to it for 12 months right now, when I hadn't planned on it, was harder for me. I really didn't find that year that we divided it up into 3 to be particularly burdensome for me, because I'm like, look, I can jump in, I can help the club, and then I'm done in a short time. And I was still probably just as involved with that all through the year, but it was a little easier to take it in small bites. So it's something which has to happen. I hear more and more clubs are having issues with having somebody to jump in there. And that's fine. It's normal now. I'd say it's probably more than normal, unless you have a huge club.
Terry, what are your thoughts on this?
I can tell you there's 2 different situations. So if you're already into the year, prerequisite is you have to have gone to pets. And what we have seen is that, take Ipswich, for example, this year, they knew that this current year, somebody stepped out of line. So they asked 3 past presidents. They each took 4 months. They are in contact with each other, so they're aware of what's going on, but one person is in charge. If it is before your year starts, then you have the opportunity, if you have 2 or 3 people, for somebody to get to pets, because that's imperative. Right now, we have 6 clubs with no president-elects. And that's, a high number, and hopefully they can find someone to pitch in and do that. There's no set formula that they have to do. It's whatever works for the club.
So when you see a club struggling to find a president, is that the first thing that you go to suggest, Terry?
No, not necessarily. One of the clubs contacted me 2 months or so ago and said, "I'm so sorry, we're missing pets. We don't have a president-elect." And I said, "You're not alone." And the first thing is to know is that you're not alone, that other clubs are coming up against the same challenges as you are. Especially, we have a lot of clubs in the 25-person range. Well, most everybody's a past president. And sometimes they don't want to step back up, but for the good of your Rotary Club, somebody has to step up. And sometimes if it's 2 people, it just makes that easier. As Tim said, I was president 5 times. It gets easier as you do it. You just kind of roll along and know what to do in your club. And you're supposed to have elections in December. And what happened in my club 2 years ago was Dominic, our president, said, "I will stay on another year if somebody will step up now to be president after me." And so you see, like you never saw in the past, a lot of clubs having presidents repeat, which is great because they have the hang of it.
Terry, you just spoke of in December, you have voting. How does it work when you're suggesting that multiple people step up? Tim or Terry, how does that work with making sure that there's a voting process, or the members are also interested in who is stepping up for presidency? How does that all work?
We're supposed to have elections in December, and I would say that Reading is a great club and is very active. We do a lot, but we never do that on time. So January, hopefully we get it done by then. But we have bylaws, and I think in our current board of directors and people involved aren't particularly concerned with the letter of the law, but we've had times where people are like, you have to have, it says that it has to be published by this date and that. And so your club likely has its own bylaws, should. And so you want to make sure you comply with whatever your own regulations are. Just so that you don't have, I think for the most part, if you don't have anybody stepping up to be president, you hopefully won't have anybody challenging the process, but you can put in whoever you want. I think nobody's got, there isn't the police who's going to come from the district and tell you have to do something else. The only thing is, I think that, you can only list like one person for, like officially on Club Runner with the district. So somebody's going to be getting the notices, and you can change that midway through. So if, Tim is president in, starting in July through September, and then starting after that, you have, Mary is going to be president. You just change it. You can change it so they're getting the notices. But you should feel free to do what you want what your club wants to do, and then have the board vote on it, and then have the club vote on it.
Do you see any challenges with having multiple presidents per year? Obviously, if that's something that keeps the club afloat, that's amazing. But what do you see as like the biggest challenge or two?
I don't think there's really a lot of, I think the challenge is getting people to sign on, to agree to do it. I think having more people involved actually helps with engagement. And, if you have a little bit of a team, even if it's 2 people, or, if you say we're going to divide that role up into multiple 3 or 4 people, the fact that they're working together, I think is going to be to help the club. And, at least that was my experience, that it was, collaborative. And And I think people, and I hoped that people were going to give me slack for the normal kind of complaints there might be. You know, we're not having weekly meetings, you know, the weekly lunch meetings now, but, you know, having things like, you know, they didn't like what was served this week, or they didn't like, you know, somebody, you know, they had a complaint about a speaker or something. We didn't do something. You didn't give us the financial reports timely enough. You know, I'm like, hey, you know, give me a break. I'm just, that was a great excuse. Like, come on, give me a break. I'm not even supposed to be here. So, but it was, you know, I think it was a lot of, I had a lot of fun in that year. And, you know, in one part, because I knew it was kind of like a sprint and then I was done. You know, with my primary role, I certainly wasn't done, but, and again, I think for those of us who have been past presidents, it's easier, you know, when you do it a next time. Since then, we had a problem because we had somebody coming in the next year, but we had nobody for the following year. So I ended up stepping in that year, and it was one of these that I think what you said, Terry, that, you know, it's like somebody's like, well, would you do it? He's like, well, I've only been in the club like, you know, a year. I don't know enough. And I said, well, if I do it this year, will you agree to do it the following year? So sometimes you can get kind of a team, maybe it's not the 1 year, but even you say, well, hey, you know, Sarah, you haven't been president yet. I think you'd be great. Oh, I can't do it now. Well, how about if you do it in 2 years? You know, that may be a way to try to get your, you know, your slate, your future years in a row.
Sarah, can I tell you again, there is no Rotary Police in the district. So there's nobody going around to check and see if you're following your bylaws or whatever. In the RI, the Rotary International bylaws, that's where it says that you should do your elections and submit your offices by December 31st. And for us, the reasoning is because pre-pet starts in January. And then in March, you're doing pets. And that's all the training for the president-elects coming in. This year, we did it all on Zoom. So those are all recorded. So those presidents who are not in place yet, we can have a session together. I'm going to run all of those so they see it. And then they can go to the pets, which was very inspirational. And they can go and look at, you know, all the speakers that were there.
That's wonderful. Is there anything that I've missed that you guys wanted to talk about regarding this topic?
You know what? Who's going to run your club should be a matter for discussion, not only with your board, but in front of your whole club. So if you don't have anybody lined up, whether it's in November or whether it's December at your Christmas party, say, hey, what are we going to do next year? Who wants to step up? Who wants to be president? It's not like the voting process is a formality. Usually there's not more than one person, except in those very large clubs that have lines of people waiting to be president. But the clubs that are from 20 to 40 people, you know, they're circling. They either have members who've only been members a year or two and who don't feel that they're ready to step up and make that commitment. And then they have a huge group who are past presidents. And so they're like, I did my time. Well, you know what? We need to call on you again. So if you have an open conversation in your club in December, then you can start that process. And if only one person steps up and says, I will do it, that's fine. Let's send out a doodle poll and get this confirmed from everybody who's not here. And you kind of, you know, just put it through that way. Then you can fill out your paperwork. It's not as much as it used to be about having a president-elect, a vice president, because you're not changing your board very much. Most clubs don't change their boards. There's a few members who come off and on. But your secretary is usually the same and the treasurer is the same and the past president is on the board and maybe two past presidents or whatever. So your board of directors isn't the same. It stays the same. And I think a lot of small clubs really don't run with board of director meetings. They run with their club and they discuss everything in front of their club anyway, what they want to do for service projects or how they want to do some fundraising or whatever. So this is just a natural topic to bring up in front of your club. Who's going to take over the leadership? And, you know, when you get someone to say, I'll do it, that's great. And you just get the confirmation from the club. I mean, it would be a wonderful thing to have two people saying, I wanted to be president. And then you can say, do you want to be it together or you want this year? And do you want next year? and, start to build that leadership team for your own club. We all have that challenge to build the leadership teams in our own individual clubs.
Yeah, I would suggest if a club is having a problem with that, and it's something I would suggest that our club should do too. We do have a president for this year, this coming year. But if you do have a gap, then I think that you should maybe have a meeting of your board and some past presidents, maybe not a formal meeting, but say, look, let's get together and talk about what are we going to do? What are some of the options, and let's think about outside the box, because Rotary is changing. The rules are not the way it was when I joined, a long time ago, where the one of the biggest I think prides at some proudest parts of it were that they had 100% attendance, and that was why my club traditionally had their meeting on Monday, because a lot of clubs didn't, and other people would come to our meeting for makeups. That certainly is not, nobody's taking attendance anymore. And a lot of the rules are, under the discretion of the club. So, we need to think about outside the box for the future of our own clubs and Rotary in general. And each club needs to think about what's going to work for them. And for the many of us who are looking at the problem with what's the leadership of our individual club going to be, we really need to look at, how can we handle that, and how can we handle it in a creative way if the traditional, somebody put your hand up and volunteer. Okay, great, you're it. If it's not working for you, something else has to happen. I anticipate my club will have to do that again in the future. And, hopefully it won't be me, because I think people are going to be too sick of seeing me up there in front of meetings all the time. And I certainly don't want to dominate the club, but, we are going to have to figure it out.
Tim, the best way to get out of that presidential track is just to jump in the DG track. And then yeah, absolutely. I told them I can't ever be president again. 5 times is it. And I've been sitting in the DG track for 2.5 years, doing my job and stuff. And that's another purpose of club presidents. It's leadership for the district. It moves you into the district committees, whatever is your passion, from membership to public image or diversity, or over to the foundation. And when you've done some time in there, then you start thinking about, gee, not that it looks easy, but I could be district governor too. And it makes you want to get in the track depending on where you are in your personal and professional life. So, that's something that comes out of being a club president. It's the one requirement. You have to be a club president to be district governor. That's it. There's no other requirements. There's no IQ test. It's just you jump in there with both feet when they pick you, when you interview and you put your application in. But it starts by being club president. And unfortunately this year, some people it's been a very tough year with no meetings in person. And, some of the club presidents just a little bit down, and we need to turn that around and remind them that it is a joy to be your club president and to lead and to represent your club and your community when we get together.
Well, thank you so much, Tim and Terry, for coming on today and talking with us about co-presidents or multiple presidents per year.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. My pleasure.